focus will be on how to protect the fundamental principles of Olympism. How are we going to reaffirm our commitment to the sports movement as the IOC, as sports, and as the Olympic Games, to be able to continue to promote peace and unity. We spoke again about medal reallocation, something that is dear to my heart because when I was leading the Athlete Commission, we discussed this and we came up with a proposal to allow for athletes to have their moment to shine. And we will have medal reallocations being done from biathlon in Vancouver 2010 and Sochi 2014. And one of those gold medals will be given to one of our fellow colleagues, Martin Fourcade. And we are really proud that this program is working. And I would also like to thank Milano Cortina for embracing this, because they have been very helpful in being able to give athletes the opportunity to receive their medals next year in 2026. We had other discussions, which I'm going to let the three gentlemen discuss since they have all the technical sides of things. But when we wrapped up the executive board, I gave a brief on the Fit for the Future, pause and reflect consultations on where we are. We are just about to launch into the full consultations with all of our stakeholders, and we're really looking forward to all of that, and looking forward to the continued communication, but collaboration with everyone so far. So thank you, and I will pass the floor back to Christian.
Thank you, President. And I'll pass it directly to Pierre, who has three interesting updates for you.
Thank you, Christian. This morning, the Executive Board took 3 decisions when it comes to the Olympic program, one on 28, one on 30, and one on 32. So when it comes to 2028, the LA Games, the EB approved the addition of 2 bodyweight categories in weightlifting. This will bring the number of categories per gender to 6, both on men and women. This will not require any increase in the overall quota or in the number of days of competition or events. The reason for this change is it will promote athletes' health. It will allow to reduce the difference in weight that we see between the categories the athletes have to compete in during the World Championship versus the categories they have to compete in the Games. So the differences in weight will be lesser. This is why we took this decision. If we turn over to 2030, French Alps, we decided today that the discipline will be decided in December at the Executive Board again. Will, however, make a difference for 2 disciplines. This is Nordic Combine and parallel slalom in snowboard. The reason why we would wait for after the Milano Cortina Games to observe those 2 disciplines is because they have been discussed previously by the Olympic Program Commission, and they wanted to see the trends from the last Games to these Games. So we want to be able to have the data from 2026 before we make a decision. And finally, looking at the Brisbane program, as you may remember, we applied a discipline review step for the LA Games, which we thought had many benefits. So we are bringing this step back. We also decided last year that for the sport program, we would defer by a year the decision. So we now have a discipline step, the sport program review step, as well as the decision by Brisbane 2032 regarding the additional sports they want that can happen next year. So the Executive Board decided we will take all of these steps at the same time, having a unique opportunity for Brisbane to decide on the additional sport the OCOG wants, the sports program and the discipline review at the same time, which will give a lot of clarity regarding the venue master plan and opportunities we would have regarding venue sharing and ways of optimizing the process. Back to you, Christian.
Thank you, Pierre. One last one. There were 13 changes of nationality, which will be published on the website ioc.org in the next few minutes, so you can take the names from the website. Everything is there. And now we go to questions and answers. short housekeeping notes. Questions here from the room. We will start with the room and we'll then go to the Zoom call, and that's why I have my switch here on the computer. For everyone on the Zoom call, please raise your hand if you want to ask a question. You will then be promoted to become a speaker or a panelist, as it's called. And then you can, when I call you up, ask your question. Please turn on your camera, say your name, your media organization, and make sure that your microphone is on. Otherwise, we have a problem. And we'll try to get as many questions done as possible, but we'll be limited in time. So let's see where we get. Last point for the Zoom participants, there's English and Italian translation on the Zoom, so you can switch it down at the bottom bar, I think. So find it. If there's a question here from the room in Italian, no problem. And with that, we go to your questions, and we start here in the room. Pascal. Hold on, a microphone is coming from behind because we need one as well.
Grazie, volevo fare Pascal Alia, Rai TV, volevo fare una domanda alla Presidente.
Thank you. I have a question for the President regarding her trip to Milan.
Ha trovato, insomma, quella
Did you find
di cui tanto ha parlato in questi giorni e poi soprattutto
the Italian passion? And what about the status of work? Were you able in the past few days to visit the various, well, you told us you visited the Olympic Village. What do you think about the organization? And what about the relations that you see with the organizers of Milano Cortina? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have to, you know, in this position, remain very neutral, so I shouldn't be saying that Rome's one of my favorite cities, and it's because it's Italian. And I know Giovanni would be very happy with me, but this has been my first time to Milan, and I think Milan is coming a very close second to being one of my favorite cities. It's been incredible. The first night I was here, I got to walk around and just feel a bit of the spirit that athletes will also be experiencing and the world will be experiencing, not just here in Milan, but also in Cortina and also in the regions. And like I said, I got to speak with the mayor of Milan and the regions, the head of the regions, and my favorite part was listening to the excitement that they had about the games going to them. And it's the organization is moving along at a speed. There's no time to lose. And what I said to all of them is, we started this journey together, and we're all going to finish together. And it's going to be an incredible 140 days to the opening ceremony. But it's going to really be wonderful because of the passion that we know Italy has for sport. But not just for that, for showcasing family and community and culture. And those are all really important pieces of what makes a game special and unique. And we felt that from the day we got here all the way up until today. So we're very excited and very happy with where things are. There's always things that we can improve on, and always there'll be a few more bumps in the road before we get there. But we're all in the boat together, and we're going to make sure that we get there and we deliver an incredible games, not just for the athletes, but for Italy as well.
Thank you, Pascal. Then we'll go into the second last row here.
Good evening, President Coventry. Have you had any meetings or discussion with the current Italian government during your visit? You spoke about the mayor, the governor, maybe a minister or something else.
I have not met personally with any government officials from the sports ministry, but the teams have been talking, and they have meetings with the government early next week. We're Friday today, I think. So early next week, they all have meetings with them. And I look forward to hearing the outcomes of that. But we've had very good communications in the past week.
Next question, we go to the colleague it comes from the other side. Here you go.
Thank you very much. Jochen Leufens, German TV, ARD. A little bit broader question. Looking back at your first month as IOC president, how did your role as sports minister prepare you for this position, and where do you see parallels in those two offices?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of different parallels, which is good, and you know, there's pros and cons to that. I think, you know, the biggest thing when you step into a role, whether it's in the government or into a big organization, where you realize outside experiences that you may have had add value. So you know, when I first stepped in as a minister, I sort of thought, well, how has my career up until now going to help me? But actually, being an athlete and going through different challenges as an athlete really gave me a completely different view on things and aspect on things. And I think from the sports ministry role, probably one of the greatest bits of information or armor maybe that I'm bringing along with me would be just having a greater understanding of different perspectives from even within one country. You've always got different perspectives, and so it was really, I think, a good opportunity to understand how to always listen and respect those differences of opinions, differences of beliefs, but at some point figuring out how to get everyone to believe in the same thing. So for me right now, and especially where we are, that's proving to be very useful.
Thank you, President. Now we close the room for a couple of seconds and go actually to the colleagues on the phone. And the first one is Wakako Yuki from Yomiuri Shimbun in Japan. It's late, so we need to have her early on in the press conference.
Indeed. Thank you indeed for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
We hear you well. Thank you.
We can, and we can see you on the screen.
I'm still at the stadium in the World Athletics. Kirsty, allow me to ask you two questions. One is this statement, fundamental principle of Olympism, the urgency and timing. Why would you like to create such statement now, apart from the situation in the world? Is it that you would like to appeal to the world leaders, perhaps before the Olympic truce discussion at the United Nations, and try to form some kind of consensus? The second part is while you were in Tokyo, I understand you had a discussion with the World Athletics President Sepko, including the issue of gene testing for protection of female category. What was your take from what WA is conducting now for this World Championships? And do you think it would form a basis for the future working group discussion? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me start with the second question. And it was wonderful to be in Tokyo, and it was even more wonderful to be walking into a stadium that was full. It was really very special, actually, very emotional. I did have a conversation with the World Athletics president. I was asking how it was all going, and he was giving me a brief. And the working group that we set up on the protection of the female category met 2 weeks ago. I've sadly not had an opportunity to sit down with them long enough to get a full briefing, but the international federations, including World Athletics, was a part of that initial discussion and meeting where they gave their feedback. And that is very important because I think it answers that second part of your question in that second question, so maybe the three questions. But the federations have done a lot of work, specifically some on the protection of the female category. All of the international federations are going to be a part of the working group and coming up with a consensus. And so, of course, everything that World Athletics is doing will definitely be taken into consideration. And I know that the working group discussed. Now, further details I can share with you a little bit later, Wikako, once I've had a full brief from the group. But obviously, the federations will all be included into that. On the statement, I think as I said in the opening remarks, it's really not about urgency or specific timing. I think it's more about acknowledging that where we are in the world today is just disappointing, and it's sad, and it's hard to see the number of conflicts around the globe get worse and worse every day. And as a movement, I think that it is our job, especially as a movement that stands for values and that stands for peace and that wants to unify people. And when you see the Olympic Games and when you walk into the Olympic Village and you see athletes from all around the world competing together and standing together, and that's what we should be fighting for. And so I think we just felt that it was the right time as an organization to sit and to talk and to reflect and to share. And we decided that it would be based off of that conversation, time to reaffirm that sport must unite the world, and we must do that in promotion of peace.
Thank you, President. Next one online is Graham Dunbar, who joins us from Geneva. Graham, or are you traveling? Takes a little second to have him on.
Hello, I hope I'm being allowed in.
Absolutely, you are in, Graham.
Right, let's go.
Watch out what you say.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for being available. And I'll try not to tax your voice too much more. I'm just imagining that you will have plans to go to the UN General Assembly next week in New York, and just want some clarity whether, as a Zimbabwean citizen, whether the visa process was problematic, or how was that done? And is this a time maybe to meet the US President, President Trump? Is that scheduled? And since you've been in office in June, is there, with Los Angeles in mind, is there anything in US society you see that's been troubling you over the last 3 months?
Thanks, Graham. I am going to UNGA. We'll be there for most of next week. We have a number of heads of state scheduled in and penciled in. So once those meetings occur, I'll come back to you with all of that and who we've seen and the conversations that we've had. The UN, as you know, plays a role specifically with the sports movement, as we have our Olympic truce in November, where we will be asking everyone around the table to really think about how we can ensure that sport remains neutral and that sport remains a platform for athletes to live out their dreams and to inspire new generations. And for me, it's important to be present next week to listen to the world leaders, to hear what they have to say on the global politics that we see unfolding. And really, that's exactly what I will be doing next week, is listening and trying to have a better understanding of where everyone sits in this very complex time of our world.
Thank you, Graham. Last question from the phone, and that's from Rachel Axon from Sports Business Journal. Here you are, Rachel. That was a quick switch over.
I'm glad. Thank you for taking the time. 2 questions on the working groups that you have established. On the one, looking at the Olympic program, to what extent are they considering rotational games? I noticed Carl Stoss was the head of that, and that had been a subject for the Future Host Commission. And when do you expect them to complete that work? And then on the protection of the female category, are you envisioning a solution in which the IOC has a across the board policy or statement, or that the IOC would more create a framework for sport by sport, those federations to make those decisions?
Thanks, Rachel. On the Olympic program, nothing's off the board or nothing's off the table. So they have a pretty big scope. This is based off of the initial conversations that the IOC members had in June, as you know. So it is, I've asked them to look at everything, to look at the complexity of the games, sport, but also the disciplines in each sport, look at the potential rotation between summer and winter. Really, I think that it is time for us to explore anything and everything, because it's really only through those discussions that we're going to be able to sit with our stakeholders and realize, oh, that maybe is a little bit too out there and we can't really get there yet, or, oh, that's actually a really good idea. So they're going to be discussing everything. On the female category, I would like for the IOC to, through the working group, and what I've asked the working group in relation with all the international federations, is to try and find consensus. Now, that could mean different things. I've not boxed them in to say, I want consensus in a policy or I want consensus in a framework. I've left it open for the working group to identify in what way we could find consensus. We know that in some sports, it's really not a very big topic, but in other sports, there's been a lot done. In other sports, less done. At the end of the day, we want there to be fairness, and we want the female category to be protected. So I know that the first meeting they had was very good, was very proactive, and they came out very positive. But again, I'm just waiting to have a sit down on all the details. And there's also no specific timeline, because I don't think that in something like this, like the others, that you need to rush through something. I want the work to be done correctly. I want the correct stakeholders to be engaged. And I don't want to limit the working groups by saying, you need to come back to me by the end of the month. We obviously don't want it to be going on and on and on for months and months, but you know, the work that they have already done so far, I know they've spoken, I think, to just about every international federation. So they're working at a really good pace, and I'm looking forward to having that debriefing with them.
Okay, President, are you ready for a second round in the room and on the phones? Okay, then we'll do a second round. We'll go to Takafumi, then we go to the lady just there, and then we have a camera operator back there.
Hello, President. Takafumi Yoshida from Kyodo News. I have a question about the AIN. President, you said there's no change for AIN's conditions since Paris. Does that mean IOC is totally confident for the Paris Olympics AIN's condition?
What way? What do you mean?
So what is the reason we're not changing the any AIN's condition? Because
no, I mean, we fully believe in how things were delivered in Paris, and we had the discussion that we need to ensure fairness, of course, and other things are respected, and so we decided that everything would remain the same. And we have the ANUP group that was set up in Paris. We will have an ANUP group revising with the international federations as well. So we felt that it was the most fair at this point to keep everything the same.
Thank you. A colleague just 2 rows behind. Yeah, okay, we turn it the other way around. Doesn't matter, Victoria. All good? No. Gentlemen.
Thank you a lot. Andrea Faticati, Courier, Austria. I would like to know when we are going to speak also about the Paralympics, when they will start, I think in March, if I'm not wrong, and how much the climate change affects the Winter Olympic Games generally, and if they aren't as they will be in March, it will be much hotter, warmer. So how does it affect?
Well, the Paralympic Games always follows the Olympic Games, so that doesn't change. When it comes to climate, that's changing every day, not just for winter, but also for summer. And I think in most of the cases, from what we've seen from the winter climates, it's shifting from February to March, so it might actually still be colder in March. I don't know if Pierre would have any more details specifically on the temperatures in March. That's not something I have looked at, but again, in the working groups on the program, it was to ask them to also look at the timing of the games, taking into consideration the environmental changes that we're seeing. And again, not just from a winter perspective. I think we're seeing it happen and come quicker in winter games, but we're seeing it on a summer games. And now I was just in Tokyo for the World Athletics, but actually this World Championships is about 2 or 3 weeks later than when they normally would have had it because of climate. So it's impacting us as a group, as a sports movement together, and we have to have those conversations about how we foresee things in the future and how are we going to adapt the historical timing of things to ensure that we can still hold sports events around the world. You're welcome.
Hello, Michele Novaga from Different Media International Agency. Is the Olympic Committee ever considered to ban Israel from participating under the Israel flag? Probably partly you answered during this press conference, and in case not, how the committee preparing to ensure the safety of the Israeli delegation in light of the violent protest against Israel over the past 2 years? Thank you.
Thank you. This executive board and in no other executive board have we discussed not having NOCs represented. We have spoken and we continue to speak through the organizing committee and the COCOM and the reports that we heard from the Italian security, I don't know if it would be security forces or what the correct wording would be, but those conversations happen for every single Olympic Games. The priority for the organizing committee, for the host country, and for the IOC is to ensure safety of all our athletes and fans and anyone that comes into contact with the Games, and those processes have not been changed and they will continue as per normal.
Thank you. Then we do 3 more from the phones, and then we do 1 more here. And I would say then we let the president's voice to go on a weekend. Okay, we start on the phone with Lisa Roche from Deseret News. Lisa, I would be surprised if the question is not about 2034.
I would never want to disappoint you. Thank you very much. President Coventry, I'm wondering in your discussions about the state of the world right now, if you talked at all about what recently happened here in Utah, and I'm talking about the fatal shooting of a conservative political activist on a college campus, not far from one of the Olympic venues. Was that part of your discussion? And can you talk about what concerns that incident may be raising in terms of the ability to protect the athletes, the spectators during an Olympic Games? I know you just referred a little bit about security in terms of Israel, but I'm wondering if this violent incident has raised more concerns and what discussion there has been around that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking my question.
Thank you, Lisa. So the discussions today were not focused on one specific event. I asked the executive board that we have a discussion looking at things in the global context. So looking at all the conflicts and all the controversial points that have happened, whether it be in the US or anywhere else. We looked at it as a holistic point to say, as a movement, where do we stand? What do we stand for? And again, it was very clear from all of us that we stand for our values. And in today's world, we believe in those values, and that those values are really important. They're important to be able to share with the world. They're important to spread. They're important to be able to educate. They're important to, at the end of the day, build a better world through sport and to unify people and to break down barriers. So that's how we discussed things today. And to be very honest with all of you, that's how I would like to continue discussing things, because I don't think it's just one event or we can take just one conflict over the other. There's more and more things that are not our proudest moments as humanity, right, happening around the world. And I think we have to acknowledge all of them, and we have to be able to say, how are we going to deal with this as a whole moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to Tracy Holmes, Australia, very late at night.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks for taking my question, President. And it's about the women's category again. I'm just wondering if it would be correct for us in the media to suggest that it's been taken away from a human rights focus and moved much more towards a medical focus. And I know you're respecting the anonymity of the members of your working group at the moment, and I respect that. But just wondering if there are not neutral people, but outside people who also bring their expertise to the working group's discussions, or whether it's purely based on members from international federations.
Thanks, Tracy. The expert working group is only made up of experts. The international federations we will have interactions with, and they are talking to, but they're not formal members of the working group. And they are experts that are coming from human rights, from medical and from legal, as well as from the sport movement.
As a quick follow-up, if I can, have you heard from any of the previous athletes who have been impacted, particularly with regard to the DSD scenario and lifelong impacts that they have felt, and whether their experiences play into the working group?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. The athletes that the working group will be speaking to all stakeholders, so not just the IFs, but they will be speaking to athletes across the board, athletes that are competing, athletes that are no longer competing, athletes that have gone through transitions, athletes that would potentially be classified maybe DSD. The group has been asked to not leave anyone out, because again, I don't think that we can truly find a consensus without having at least spoken to everyone that this impacts. So that is why there's also no time limit, because to set a very restrictive time limit for this group to do the adequate and necessary conversations that they need to have, I think is really very important, and probably more important than setting a very strict deadline to them. So they will be consulting with everybody.
Thank you.
And then we have one more question from the Zoom call, and that's from Carolas Groman from Reuters. Carolas, greetings to you.
Greetings. Hope you can see me and hear me.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time today. A question on the AINs, if I can go back to that. Has there been any contact with the Russian Olympic Committee ahead of this decision today? And also, do you have a specific number or a general number in mind, given the strength of Russian athletes, especially at Winter Games? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have an idea on the numbers, and for the technical side, I'll pass that to Piers so I don't get the numbers wrong, because there's obviously specifics in that. We have communications with all of our NOCs consistently. With the ROC, I can also pass over to James in terms of the first part of the question there, Carlos. We can start with Pierre.
Yes, thank you. So we are working with the international federations to understand, with this decision taking place today, what is the pathway for a number of athletes to still qualify for the Games. You've heard probably from some of the federations at their board or general assembly level, they have not opened the door themselves to the participation of AIN athletes. So we'll have to work with those which still have a decision to make or have made a decision. This is the case, for example, of the Skating Union Federation, Ski Mountaineering Federation. There is a board upcoming for the International Ski Federation that could also open the door to a number of athletes to be qualified. So we are working closely with them to understand where are possibilities to still qualify for the Games moving forward.
Maybe just to pick up on what the President said, yes, of course, we have numerous contacts with all the National Olympic Committees. We need to make sure that those contacts remain even in difficult periods to ensure that there could be a pathway to come back at some point.
Thank you. And then we have the last question here from the room. Okay, President, are you up for two more? We take the two more. We start with the gentleman here, and then we take the gentleman over here.
Grazie, due domande velocissime. Francesco Perugini, Rai Lombardia.
Thank you. Rai Lombardia, Francesco Perugini. President Coventry, you talked about having been able to speak with law enforcement and authorities here in Italy. Have they guaranteed the fact that they'll be able to look after the security and safety of athletes and competitions? And for Mr. Ducret, after this monitoring, and after looking at the very critical points of the venues or facilities, what do you think we need to focus on as we draw closer to the Games? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And we have the full commitment from and the guarantees from all stakeholders, from the OCOG and government, from the regions. There is zero part of me that doesn't feel that they would fulfill all of those. And we're, again, as I said before, working very closely with them, especially when it comes to security matters, and that will not change. And so far, we've had an incredible relationship with them, and they've been fully committed to ensuring the safety for everyone to welcome the world to Italy.
And when it comes to readiness, when you get this close from the Games, the kind of program that become the focus is simulation testing. So that's very much what the organizing committee is doing at this point in time. They're running a number of scenarios where they prepare themselves for all that can happen. They are preparing also, of course, the final delivery of the venues. We have test events coming up. There is a short track test event, the speed skating test event coming in November. There'll be test event in ice hockey. So all these simulation, whether they are around the table or in the venue, have a sole purpose to make sure that the team that has been assembled and that is working towards the Games is as ready as can be when the competition starts. So the readiness phase is going very well. It's happening in very close collaboration with the International Federation, with the IOC. So we're going to work only closer over the next, I'm not sure how many days that is, but 140 something. Thank you.
And then we go for the last question here for the gentleman in green.
Sì, buonasera, Marco Cangelli, Sport Mediaset. Volevo chiedere alla
Good afternoon, Sport Mediaset. I wanted to ask the President, with regards to winter sports, do you intend in the future to include cyclocross and cross-country disciplines? And also as regards summer sports, whether you received any requests from Italy for 2036, and if you rediscussed the bid put forward by Bologna and Florence.
Thank you for the question. In terms of specific, and I speak under the guidance of a peer here, specifically on the cross country and I think, did you say the downhill? Did I hear that correctly?
Cross country and cyclocross.
Oh, and cyclocross. Got it. Yes, I believe there have been some different conversations. Again, you can give a bit more background because that was not really under the discussion today. So I'll let Pierre handle that because I don't want to give you the wrong information. To my knowledge, I don't believe we've received anything for 2036, unless I look at the team, if they've heard anything different. So not that I know of for 2036. And then maybe Pierre, if you want to just jump in with the facts on those.
Yes, on this request, the first element to do is go back to what the President answered before. If there is a consideration to be made of including what we can define as per the Olympic Charter as summer sport and disciplines, this will be referred back to the working group for us to be able to consider, is this feasible or not? But yes, we do know there is interest on the French side to consider such events to be part of their program, so we are discussing with them, but first and foremost, we will need to see what is the outcome of the Olympic Program Working Group so that we can find out if there is a path for this to happen or not.
Thank you very much, everyone. Before we go, and as we are in Italy, the country of design, we have currently the medal design competition ongoing for the Olympic Games Dakar 2026. Last time we had 3,000 entries, and it would be good to have as many this year. So please tell your readers and all your clients and all your friends about it. We look forward to receiving their proposals. Good afternoon. Looking forward also to be back in February.
Thank you, Franz.
Thank you.